Let me introduce myself. I'm Rick Sass. I'm Employer Relations Manager at the Center for Career and Calling, at least until today. Actually, today is my last day at Seattle Pacific, so you guys get the last shot at me, okay? And I have been doing these classes for a variety of people, primarily students, over the last year. I do want to encourage everybody. How many students do we actually have here? Do we have any students here? We have one, and he's recording us. Okay. I normally get a few more students, but I don't think we really promoted it particularly well. But I do know we have some alums in the room, right? Yes, mostly alums here, so that's great. Let me ask you this, and by way of talking a little bit about LinkedIn, because that's obviously why we're here and what the topic is. I've been on LinkedIn almost since the start. It started up about 2001, I think. It has been out there a while. It is one of the larger social media platforms and probably the most professional one that is used out there today. Let me ask for a show of hands. How many of you are on Facebook? I expected with a few non-students in the room that we would have a few that are not, and that's okay. I usually do that with the students because they're all on Facebook, right? All on Facebook, and so they get Facebook. Students in particular, and are you a student?
I am. Well, I just graduated.
You're still a student.
Okay.
You count. So the students, no one understands social media because they've grown up with it. They've lived with it all their lives. They're so familiar with Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram and you name it, but most of them are not terribly familiar with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is actually one of the larger social media platforms out there. There are currently about 300 and some odd million, probably about 320 million profiles on LinkedIn. By comparison, there are about 1 billion on Facebook. But I always like to put a little caveat in there with the Facebook thing because I happen to know that there are at least 100,000 pet profiles on Facebook. So they're not all professional profiles on Facebook. LinkedIn is, however, it tends to be very, very professional. So what I want to do today is a number of things. I want to walk you through kind of the elements of LinkedIn. I want to answer your questions and address what's important to you. I'm going to go through what I think is important in terms of what you need to have on your profile so that you can be found. This is a place, I like to refer to it as a place to find people and to be found. And that's part of what we're going to cover today. I could literally spend several hours, and I have done workshops and seminars where I have spent several hours going through it. I'm going to try and do what is most helpful to the audience in the room, to all of you. So let me ask you this. How many of you have been on LinkedIn for a while? 2.5. So the rest of you, I'm assuming, are pretty much newbies. You really have just started. Do you at least all have a profile? Yes? No? No? You do? No. You don't? Okay. I just set mine up this morning. Okay, so if you set up this morning, that's what I'm looking for, okay? For those of you who have been on it a while, does anybody have 100 connections? Okay, all right. So I just like to get a little bit of a sense of who I'm talking to and where we're going to go with this, okay? So let me start with this. You know, I've talked a little bit about social media. You guys might recognize this platform, Google, okay? How many of you have done a Google search on your own name? Come on, fess up. You should be doing, you should be going in and looking for your name on Google searches. Why would you do that? Any thoughts? Why would you go check what shows up when somebody does a Google search?
You get a first, like, an idea of what impression people are getting when they are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you this, and this is where I normally, kind of steer this towards the students, but students are going to be looking for jobs. And when you go looking for a job, we know that 90% of potential employers are going to Google search you. And of those, about 90% of those are going to go and see if you've got a Facebook account that they can look at and a LinkedIn profile. Why do they do that? Because they want to get to know you a little bit, know who you hang out with, know what you've done, know where you've been. So if I do a Google search on Rick Sass, and it's not just because I'm so popular, but there's my picture in a couple places, along with my alter ego who runs a dive school in Michigan. Okay, and I don't know why she showed up because I doubt her name is Rick Sass. But what you'll see here is a couple of things. This is my LinkedIn profile. I happen to know that there are 19 individuals on LinkedIn with the name Rick or Richard Sass, yet my profile pops up to the top of a Google search. Why is that? Any thoughts? If I do a LinkedIn search, my profile on LinkedIn pops up ahead of all the other 18 or 19 other Rick or Richard Sasses that are on LinkedIn. Any idea why that is? I'll give you a hint. Right here is the URL associated with my LinkedIn profile. The URL is your address on the internet. So any page you look at on the internet has a URL. It's got basically an address that you go and look at. So the fact that mine is my name, for those of you who just set up an account this morning, let me go back over to editing my profile here. Here is where my URL shows up on my profile, right under my picture. If you signed up this morning for a LinkedIn profile, a LinkedIn account, yours is going to have your name in there, but it's going to have a bunch of numbers and lines and squigglies, all this different stuff. People are not going to do a Google search and show up on your page. So the first thing I always ask everybody to do, this is a little hands-on thing, so you guys all have computers in front of you. So go to your LinkedIn profile, and under Profile, the first tab there says Edit Profile. I want you to click on Edit Profile. That is where I am at here. When you hit Edit Profile, all these little blue crayons, I like to call them, show up next to anything that you can edit on your LinkedIn profile. Underneath your picture, and we'll talk about pictures in a couple of minutes, there is your URL. And if you look next to it, it says Edit. Click on Edit. If you have not already, well, even if you have got your name as your URL. If you click on Edit, and it's going to look a little different than what I've got, but somewhere there, this box is going to show up. It's going to say your current URL is, and in this case, it shows what mine is, but it says customize your public profile URL. That should be in blue. Go ahead and click on that, and this box should pop up, but it will have your current URL in there. Type in your name with no spaces. Rick Sass, no space. If you have a common name, John Smith, good luck. Might have to get a little bit, if your name is available, it'll give you a green check mark there. Go ahead and take it, nab it, it's yours. If it doesn't work, you'll get a red X, in which case try last name first, first name in the middle, or put a middle initial in, or do something a little creative. If you have to, you can put a number. I'm not a big proponent of using a number like Rick Sass 5 or something like that, but try to get your name. For one thing, that helps to drive that search on the Google search. The other thing that's going to help you is to get as many connections as you can get, and I'll walk you through how to do that. But it's important to try and do this. One thing I tell students again, and any professional, is that once you have gotten your URL with your name in it, put it on your resume. They're going to go looking for you anyway. Help them out. Make sure they're going to the right place, okay? So how many of you were successful in getting your name? Love it. Love it. Love to see it. Okay. For those of you who didn't, are you playing around with different combinations? Maybe, you might put in an SPU if you figure you're going to be here forever, unlike me. So anyway, try to get something that's going to identify you as you, because it helps drive those searches, okay? So that's the first big tip, which, by the way, most professionals don't even figure that tip out. So you guys are ahead of the game already. Your landing page on LinkedIn is the home page. You need to think of us, again, for those of you who are familiar with other social media platforms like Facebook, on Facebook you have a wall where people can post things. On LinkedIn, you have something similar. Your home page is a flow, similar to what you might see on Twitter, of information from people that you know or are following, companies you are following, or you'll see as I page down on my page here, you can see it's a work anniversary for Jennifer McMahon. You can see what my friend Michelle Gordell just posted looks like an article that she's got up here. So anybody that you are following or are first level connection with, or companies you follow, Or they've got this new thing called Pulse, which is where you can follow influencers like Barack Obama or Steve Jobs, or, well, not Steve Jobs, obviously, because he's not with us anymore, but anybody who is doing blogs out there for LinkedIn, which they're inviting many people to do, they'll show up there too. You'll also see this. 10 people have new connections. So 10 of my connections have gotten new connections, and it tells me who they are and who they connected with. And this is one place where you can start building your connections. I say that's one of the things you want to do, is you want to connect with as many people as you can and that you know. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we get specific about that. But here's my son, as a matter of fact, just connected with Vince Spina, who I don't know. But if I did, I could literally just go in and connect with him now. And that's one of the ways that this page is helpful to you. You can see, and I'll frequently tell students this, take a look at who you are connected to on a first level basis and who they connect with, because a lot of times you're going to know those people. And then you can reach out. And the reason you do that is because the more you reach out, the more reach you've got. In a town like Seattle, you are always close to just about anybody. I always like to say you are never more than 3 people away from anybody in this town. And we'll do a little test on that later on too. So think of this as your homepage it's just a flow of information. Deloitte is a company I'm following because I've worked with accounting recruiting. Agnes First is somebody I used to work with. Jackie Peterson I know through a networking group. So all these people have posted articles, they've connected with somebody. Dodd has a new photo and I get to see that. This is something to always keep in mind too when you are posting things. So one of the things I'm going to tell you to do right now, especially for those of you who may have had a profile for a while, if you are going to be making changes as we go through today, I'm going to suggest you do this. Up in the upper right hand corner, there's a little bitty picture that is similar to, it's the same as your picture, okay? If I hover over that, you'll see there's a drop down, which are the account settings. The fifth one down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is privacy and settings, okay? I'm going to click on that really quickly because this is important. If you're going to be making changes to your profile, it will always ask you for your password, which is a good thing. And this is what the page should come up. You'll see the same thing, okay? The reason I tell you this is because whenever you're going to be making any massive changes to your profile and you don't want to bug all your connections about it, go down here to turn on and off your activity broadcasts. The standard is to have it check marked as mine is right now. Let people know when you change your profile, make recommendations, or follow companies. When you are making big changes to your profile, take that check mark off. That's the default setting, because otherwise, not only are all your connections going to know that you're making changes to your profile, but it does a great job of highlighting for them exactly what you changed. And it can really bug them if you're doing a lot of changes, because they'll get an update every time you make a change. So go ahead and click that off. But it is very helpful when you're changing jobs, when there's something new, and you want to let all of your connections know about it without having to send individual emails. That's when you want this checked, because then they're going to be alerted that, hey, there's been a change to Rick. Here's what's changed. So if I'm changing jobs, if I'm moving to a different city, if I have joined a group, if I'm suddenly following another company, it's great to let your connections in your network know about that. Okay? If we have the time later on, I'll come back and show you there are some other very important things on this page, the settings page, and I encourage you to get in there and do it, looking at who can see your activity feed, what can they see, turning on and off how you rank, which is a fairly new one that they've just added. We'll get back to those if we have time. But if we don't get back to those, get in there and play around with them. There are actually several different areas. This is the profile. There's one for communications, one for groups and companies, and one that is your overall account stuff. I want to go back to the home page, and what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit very quickly about how the network works with LinkedIn. You need to think in terms of 3 levels of connection. So, Nikki and I decide we want to connect on LinkedIn, just as you would friend somebody on Facebook, okay? So one of us sends the other one an invitation to connect. Nikki, I assume you have a profile out here. Can I pick on you briefly? Because I don't think, are we connected? We'll find out in a second here, won't we? Nope, you're second level. I just saw you. I have you misspelled. That's what it is, right? A-M.
A-R.
A-R.
A-N-T-I-D-E-S.
I wasn't even close. There you are. Okay, so you can see Nikki and I are second level connection. What does that mean? That means that we have common connections. So I'm going to show you how this works, okay? Nice picture, Nikki. I like that. While we're on the topic, picture, okay? You want a picture that is a headshot. I want you smiling. Nikki's smiling. Good job, Nikki. Okay? If you want to do it in your native environment, that's okay, but I don't want a selfie. I want something that's got some pixels to it so it looks good. It's got to be reasonably professional. My picture, by the way, was not professional. It was taken by somebody who had a professional experience, but it's just a friend who took a headshot. Reason I say headshot, smiling, not a selfie, they're going to look at your profile. You can choose who sees your picture and who doesn't in the settings. For my job and for what I do, I want to have everybody have access to my picture. Some people don't, that's fine. Personal choice. If I'm meeting somebody for coffee, I'd rather have them say, ah, there's Rick, instead of going around, are you Rick? Are you Rick? Are you Rick? So I want to make sure they see my picture. As I say, headshot, smiling, that's all perfect. If you're going to work for REI, it's great to have a picture of you out climbing a mountain. That's great. Otherwise, I don't want to see you out there with the dog, throwing the ball or whatever. I want to see something that's reasonably professional. And I say yes to a picture, okay? So, I want to connect with Nikki. Literally, I'm going to hit connect, okay? And this is what will pop up. There's a couple of ways I can connect with Nikki. This is the standard way of doing it, okay? So it says, oh, how do you know Nikki? By the way, my pet peeve with LinkedIn is that everybody sends this standard boilerplate, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Boring. Tell me how you know me. Tell me why it should matter to me. You get 240 characters there to put in a personal message. Spend 30 seconds to do it, please. If you take nothing else away from this session today, do that. It's as simple as this. You go down, you put your cursor there, you type out whatever you want. Hey, Rick, great working with you, enjoyed blah, 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 whatever, okay? I don't care if it's mom and dad. Great to see you last weekend. I'll be over for dinner as usual on Friday. Put something down that personalizes it. If I get this, and it's partly because I'm jaded, because I've been on LinkedIn for forever and I've got a bazillion connections, if I get that, it says to me, this person didn't care enough to spend 30 seconds to say how we met and why I know you and why it's important to me. So please do that for me. The other thing LinkedIn is going to do is it will not allow you to game the system. So I can say, oh, well, Nikki and I were classmates. I'm not going to use colleagues because obviously we are colleagues. But if it says, okay, you were classmates, where were you classmates? It's going to look at my profile, not Nikki's, and it's going to say, where were you guys classmates? And it's going to pop up my schools, my high school, my undergraduate degree came from Notre Dame, and my graduate from Kansas. Those are my only options. Although I do see they've now added another, so I stand corrected. They've added other. I don't know how that works, but something new. You have to put that down because then when the email goes to Nikki, it's going to say, Rick, who says he went to school with you at University of Kansas, would like to connect with you on LinkedIn. And that way Nikki can say, I didn't go to school with any Rick at University of Kansas. I didn't go to University of Kansas. So she knows. And what she can then do is when she rejects your desire to connect, she has the option of identifying it as a spam or as basically, I don't know this person, they're bothering me. If you get, last I knew, LinkedIn gave you 3 of those where people complain about you and then they shut down your account. So you don't want to do that, okay? So, enough said on that. Obviously, since Nikki and I are colleagues, if I said colleague, it's going to look at my past history and it's going to say, what position were you in when you and Nikki were colleagues? And in this case, yes, was when I was at Seattle Pacific. She's at Seattle Pacific. So I can do that and then personalize my message to Nikki and send it off. There is another way to do it. Actually, there are several ways to do it. But if I decided, you could send Nikki an in-mail, which I don't recommend because that's kind of very impersonal. But this next to where it says connect and send Nikki an in-mail, it says get introduced, the second one down. This is where the network comes in. So you saw that Nikki and I are second level connections because there's a 2 up here, second. What that means is there is somebody that she and I are both connected to. And I suspect there are several somebodies. So if I click that and say get introduced, then up pops a different screen. So it's now asking me, and by the way, they've changed this since the last time I was on here too, because this is a different screen. So here you go, fast and furious. LinkedIn is changing things all the time. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, which of these connections, Susan, Jackie, Karen, Lauren, Patty, we've got a lot of connections in common, as you can see, and I could pick any one of those. Let's say I was just going to, because she was here, I'm going to pick Karen. So it's now going to say, oh, okay, well, Karen, can you introduce me to Nikki? They've populated this a little bit. Again, don't use their boilerplate language. Put in personalized messages. What I want you to do is to say, put a note first to Karen to say, Karen, in addition to, can you introduce me to Nikki? Here's why I would like to talk to Nikki. Here's why I'd like to connect with Nikki. And then underneath it, I'm going to put out, again, it's going to be short and sweet, probably a sentence or two saying, Nikki, here's the reason that I would like to at least have a conversation with you, if not maybe connect with you via LinkedIn. I'm going to take this opportunity to explain how I connect to people on LinkedIn. There are what we refer to as LinkedIn open networkers, or lions. They are people who say, I will connect with anybody for any reason because it's all for the good. Personally, I don't think that works. For me, and it says so right on my profile, I will only connect with you if I know you, which means a minimum of I've spent an hour face-to-face individually with you. That's my personal way of doing it, and the reason I do that is because I've had occasions in the past where I wanted to reach out to somebody in the business community, and I went and I looked at my LinkedIn profile and I said, oh, Karen knows Nikki, I'll reach out through her. And obviously it wouldn't happen in this case, but conceivably what could happen is Karen could say, yeah, I'm happy to pass that along, Rick, and she passes it along and I don't hear anything. And so I reach back to Karen and I say, Karen, what's up? And she'll say, yeah, I sent something to Nikki, but she didn't respond to it. A lot of times what I would get is this. I would get somebody saying, I don't really know her really well. I met her at a conference one time, and so to me, that's not a strong connection. And the stronger the connections, the more likely you are to get things done in my world. Now, having said that, I've got 800 connections. Well, I've been out in the work world for, since they put dirt on the earth. And I have a lot of connections, and that's even doing it as closely guarded as I say. I don't just connect with anybody, but I can tell you something about all 800 of those connections because I have spent that time. And so I want it to be personalized so that when I reach out through Karen to get to Nikki, Karen is not only going to say yes, Nikki's going to say yes too. And usually what I do actually is to step outside of LinkedIn and send an email to both of them and say, here's the reason that I'd like to connect. Would you be willing to connect me? But this is the easiest way to do it is through LinkedIn. I personally like to go the direct route of, if we have a commonality of we've worked in the same place, we've gone to school the same place, that's the easiest route. This is the second easiest way, especially because in a case like this, I have lots of options. Many times, even if you're a second level connection, you might only have one person in between you, so you have to rely on how good that connection is, not only to yourself, but to the other person. Okay, but it's a very effective way of getting through. My acceptance rate going that way through LinkedIn is between 60 and 80%, and that's pretty good. Okay. Now the way LinkedIn works, and this is kind of where I started on this, is so Nikki and I are second level connections through Karen and all those other people. So let's say Nikki and I now connect first level connections. We agree, we're both first level connection instead of second. Okay. Now by definition, Everyone that Nikki is connected to that I am not connected to on LinkedIn automatically is a second level connection to me because they're a first level connection to her. Okay? So let's say that Julia is connected to Nikki, but not to me. Okay? So she's my second level connection, is a first level connection to Nikki. Anybody that Julia is connected to that Nikki is not is now a third level connection to me, a second level connection to Nikki, a first level connection to Julia. That's as far as LinkedIn goes, but that's very, very powerful. In this network, it is extremely powerful. So I can tell you the last time I looked, I've got 830 some odd connections. How many people do you think that puts in my network going first level, second level, third level connection? You're way too low. Give me a number. Keeping in mind there's 300 million profiles on LinkedIn, give me a big number of how many people you think there are in my network.
15,000.
15,000. You can't even see the ballpark.
200,000.
You're not even close.
500,000.
You're still not close.
1.5 million.
You can see the ballpark. Okay? Here's how it goes. We'll go out to the home page because it's, yes, I want to leave this page, because it's out on your home page. As you page down, a couple of numbers show up here. My profile's been viewed by 13 people in the last 7 days. This rank is a little bit goofy, but that's what it is. So there's my 830 connections, and here's my network. 14,111,508 professionals in my network. To me, the most exciting thing about that number is not the size of it, but the fact that April of last year, April of 2013, so what's that, 17 months ago, I got excited because I hit 10 million. In the 15 or so months, 16 months, whatever it is, since I hit 10 million, I have probably added 35, 40 connections maybe. My network has gone up by 4 million. That gives you enormous opportunity to connect. And as I said, this is a tool that you use to be found and to find people. And I'll show you how to do both of those, okay? But the more connections you have, and obviously, I don't expect everybody to go out and get 800 connections tomorrow. What I tell students is this. My rule of thumb, and I don't hear a whole lot of people even teaching LinkedIn that say this, but my rule of thumb that works for me is that you should have roughly 100 for each 10 years of your age. So that would be, what, 10 per year? So I'm good until I'm 83. But I like to see students, by the time they graduate, having about 200 connections. They're going to need those connections to help them find their way out into the business world. The other thing to think about here too is you've got professionals out there that are recruiters that spend their time on LinkedIn looking for people. And that's where we're going to start talking about what your profile says here in a couple minutes. We've got an alumnus of SPU. She actually got her MBA from here, and she is a high-level recruiter at Russell Investments. She confided to me that she spends 95% of her day on LinkedIn. What she does is very elaborate Boolean searches. For those of you who are familiar with Boolean searches, you use the ands and the ors, and you put specific buzzwords in of exactly what you're looking for. And you narrow your search down, and what she does is she narrows the search until she gets 10 names, and she picks up the phone and she calls them. Hey, we got an opportunity for you. This is the world of recruiting. That's where they're headed. So that's why having a strong LinkedIn profile is critical. I will frequently tell students, and anybody else for that matter, that your LinkedIn profile is your resume online on steroids. It's easy when I'm talking to students because I tell them, normally if you come over to the Center for Career and Calling, we're going to put together for you, because you have somewhat limited experience, a one-page resume, because you don't have an enormous amount of experience. If you're a professional, you've been out there in the world a while, even I have a 2-page resume. I can say way more on my LinkedIn profile in terms of who I am and what I am all about than I can on a resume. So your LinkedIn profile, and more professionals are saying this, your LinkedIn profile is really you online. And it gives people the opportunity to take a look at you and what you're all about. Okay? So let's take a look at the various different elements of the profile. Okay? Starting right up at the top. I had this question come up earlier, name. For those of you from Human Resources, you know my name isn't Rick Sass. It is Rick Sass, but it isn't. My name is actually Lawrence. Uh-oh. Secret's out. But not only does my profile not say Lawrence, because I have never used my first name, thank my parents for that, but my middle name is Richard, and you don't see Richard there either. You see Rick, and that's because that's the name I go by. That's what's on my business cards. That's what I want people to call me, and I want them to know me by that. So that's what I have there. Obviously, you can put whatever you want. Depending on what profession you're in, and you might want to be more stuffy and professional if you're in something that requires that, legal professions, accounting, some things like that. Underneath it, I'm going to go back to editing my profile here, so you might want to edit along with me. So underneath that, you've got your headline, and that is this area right here. You see mine says Employer Relations Connecting Employees and Top-Level Talent / Connector / Career Coach. You get a lot of space there. You get, I think, 140 characters to put in what you want. So the big mistake a lot of professionals make is they put in what their current title is. Well, if you look at somebody's public profile, the very next line on a public profile after your headline is your current job title. So if you have the same thing in both places, you're just being redundant and wasting what I, in my newspaper days, called premium location at the top of the front page. This is where you get to put out your message. So I frequently use one of our students. Tina graduated from SPU in the spring, and she was one of our peer career advisors in the Center for Career and Calling. And you can see now she's changed her headline to say recent graduate from SPU in marketing and international business. I get a sense there of, number one, that she's a recent grad, obviously, but what it is she's looking to do, marketing or international business, okay? So another good example I can show you, former colleague of mine, Matt Youngquist. And you'll see he's done kind of the same approach that I have done, and that is he's got a bunch of different things here. Career coach, resume writer, job search expert, corporate outplacement consultant. If you wear a number of hats, if you do a number of things, put them down. For my students, if you've got a number of different interests, put them down there. Give me a sense of who you are, what you're about, right in the headline, because these are keywords that are going to be used by those recruiters to find you. By the way, another thing that you'll notice, Matt's got this lovely blue thing surrounding him that I don't. That's because Matt pays for his account. I used to too, and I had this lovely picture of the loop, SPU loop, on mine, but you can see from my profile, I have decided to do away with that because even for me, who spends a lot of time on LinkedIn, it was not worth my while to pay, and I recommend to you that you not pay either. There's no real reason to. I suspect LinkedIn will gradually continue to whittle things away from free users just to try and get you to pay. I was a little bit surprised when I stopped paying by how much they dogged after me saying, we really want you back, 25% off. And it was like, okay, fire sale going on, I know what's going on here. So anyway, this is prime real estate. Those words are important. You want buzzwords that are in your area, your industry, what you do well, up there at the top and scattered throughout your profile, because the more times that the buzzwords show up in your profile, the more likely you are to rise up towards the top on the searches that are done by recruiters, okay? Underneath that, underneath your headline, you get to, let me go back to editing my profile again. You get to pick your location, One of the weird quirks of LinkedIn is it uses zip codes. But the nice thing is you don't have to be precise. It's kind of the hand grenade approach. You get close and you're okay. It will ask you for a postal zip code here. That's my home zip code, so you can see it offers options of Sammamish, Washington, or Greater Seattle. I put Greater Seattle because a lot of people can't even say Sammamish, much less know where it is. So I want to be known as being in the Seattle area. They have about 100 different industries, and they're adding to them all the time. So you should be able, and I'll tell my students this frequently, you should be able to find, I mean, literally there's wine and spirits, wireless, wholesale, warehousing. There is all kinds there are all kinds of different options there. So pick one that's going to fit the best with what you've got and then save that information. I will frequently tell students, especially because we have a lot of students, at least 40% of our students are not from in-state Washington. So if they're going to go back to Portland or San Diego for their career, then put that zip code down for where they are. But by the same token, if they are here and they want to stay here instead of going back home to Portland, I encourage them to put down a Seattle zip code there. Okay? Summary. Probably the most important real estate, other than your picture and your headline, is your summary. Here you can see I have a lot of stuff on the top of my summary because I tell you right away the best way to connect with me is at the SPU Alumni Association. Vendors, here's my email, but don't try to connect to me if you don't know me. And that's why I say right here, as a general rule, in order to protect the integrity of my connections, I will not connect on LinkedIn with anyone I have not met face-to-face and shared at least a coffee get-to-know-you meeting. Okay? That's me. Handle it the way you want. This is flowery stuff that I put in there because of the job that I'm in. Normally, you don't need to do something like that. You get down into this area where it's going to be 3-4 paragraphs maybe that are going to highlight keywords that are buzzwords in your area. If you're a great writer, if you're a good editor, I want to see that in there. If you write children's stories, I want to see that in there. If you are known for leadership, for developing teams, I put those in mine. Put down the strengths that you are known for and that you want to be known for and that you're hoping people will be looking for in your profile. This portion is just like doing the summary on your resume, only again, it's on steroids. It's big. You can put all kinds of stuff in there. I sometimes have people ask me, should I make it specific to a specific job or should I put down the whole laundry list, including the sink, of everything I'm good at? Depends on you, depends on what you're going to use this for. You can change it too. I have changed mine from time to time, depending on I wanted to move into this type of a career or I wanted to move into this industry and to emphasize those skills. Okay? So even in what I've got up here, I should probably, and I have started pulling some of the things out like P&L management. Obviously, I'm not doing that here at Seattle Pacific. I did that when I was with USA Today. Some of the other things that I should probably weed out, but I'm leaving them there for the time being. It doesn't hurt for them to be there. Okay? And what's in here, especially up at the top, the more times you have these words in your profile, not just the summary, but down below in the individual jobs, the more likely you are to be found in searches that recruiters or potential hiring managers are going to use to find you. One thing I want to point out here, even on this, but especially down below in individual jobs, is that you'll notice you can add a link or upload a file. Again, I frequently bring this up with students who are so used to having the mobile devices and YouTube videos and all those types of things. You can give a potential employer or somebody, a recruiter, a sense of who you are by showing them a link. Here's a website that I help to work with. Here's a file of a YouTube video showing me giving a presentation on LinkedIn. You can attach, literally it's as simple as what it shows there. You just click on it and that's what it does. So you can add links, you can upload files. Obviously make sure that you are not putting something confidential there that you're not allowed to put out there. But if you worked on a group project, you came up with a white paper, you published something, put the connection there. It allows people to look and see your work without even having to meet you. And that can make you very, very appealing to a potential employer or recruiter. Okay? Once you add and I'm getting down to the area of experience now just because that's the way my profile is set up. Again, when I'm talking to students, I will usually tell them to put their education up on top. In my case, it's way down at the bottom because it was a long time ago. But my education shows up down here. With the students, I generally encourage them to put it at the top. And it's as simple as taking this right over here on the right-hand side when I'm in edit mode. There's an up and down arrow, and I can drag whole categories of information around my LinkedIn profile. So if I wanted my education to go up on top, even above the summary, I could do that. If I wanted it ahead of my experience, which I frequently encourage students to do because they have the latest and greatest in education, but probably not an enormous amount of experience. So I'll tell them, move your education up. And with the students, I'll tell them to list the classes they've got. And also, there's a way that they can put papers, they can put test scores. I'll show you how you can do that in a minute too. But in my case, because I've got a lot of experience out in the business world, that's what shows up next. When you put down a position that you've had, you need to put down, and this is where it turns back a little bit into a resume, you'll be able to identify with a logo where you worked. And this is particularly important in terms of establishing your credibility. If I say that I worked at USA Today, you can say, okay, but if you see it on my profile and I've got the USA Today logo down here, then you say, oh yeah, you worked at USA Today, especially when you see it like 4 or 5 times. Okay? So you're going to do that with every position you've had. And what I really want you to do when you are putting down your experience, and this is the same thing I tell students to do with resumes too. I'll tell anybody to do with resumes. Most people with resumes and with their LinkedIn profiles have a tendency to put down, here's what I was responsible for, what I call responsibility statements. That's great, but I want to know, what did you do? Why did they invite you to come back every day? What were you good at? And that's what I want to see here. And I want to see, if at all possible, measurements. So in my case, when I was at Lehigh Harrison, it said, received outstanding client evaluations, improving each month of service to a final month evaluation level of 4.9 out of 5. If I'm a potential employer and I see that, I might say, ooh, hey, that's pretty good. Maybe I need to talk to this guy. And the role of your resume, and the same thing with your LinkedIn profile, is to attract people to want to pick up the phone, send you an email, somehow connect with you. LinkedIn will help them do that too. That's its purpose to me. Otherwise, different conversation, okay? Another thing I want to show you while I'm on my Lehigh Harrison time is, you'll notice down below it I've got a recommendation. There are a couple different ways that people can endorse or recommend you on LinkedIn. It used to be just recommendations. That required somebody actually going and writing something out, but it's like getting a free letter of reference that you get to decide whether it shows up on your profile or not, and it's there for as long as you want it. Because even if Cindy suddenly said, you know, I don't like Rick anymore, I'm going to do away with that, she can't. That belongs to me now. Okay? So these are particularly important. What happened was, a couple of years ago, LinkedIn noticed that people weren't using it, and when they did, or so the story went, it became a quid pro quo. In other words, Cindy wrote some nice things about me, and I wrote some nice things about Cindy. And that didn't happen in this case. I have not actually done a recommendation for her. She was my boss. What can I say? So that was their excuse, but they created a whole different category, and I suspect in my cynical way that it was for a different purpose, and that is this down here, skills and endorsements. A little bit controversial. Nonetheless, what this started out at was very well-intentioned, and that was, I get to list, I get to decide what skills I think I'm good at. And you can have up to 50 of them. What they then did, though, was they started out by saying, you get to tell me what level of expertise you're at and how many years you've done it. And that's the way it first started on LinkedIn. Then after that, somebody came up with a brilliant idea, let's just do this endorsement thing. And what happens is, and I've got it turned off on mine so it won't work, but literally if you go to a first level connection, if any of you go to a first level connection you have, when you pop up their profile, what'll happen is a blue box will show up at the top and say, Is Rick good at, and it'll list 5 skills. Is Rick good at this, 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 and this? And it's as simple as somebody clicking, yeah, Rick's good at that. So I hate to pick on my friend Mark, but here's training, okay, which is listed as my 5th area of expertise. And here's my poor friend Mark, who I know through a number of networking groups. And Mark is, we went over to Janine. But Mark is a delightful guy, very knowledgeable, and I'm rolling around here. Mark has never seen me show somebody how to tie a shoe or how to find the door. Mark and I are in a networking group together. He's a nice guy. Mark invariably got one of those blue boxes and says, Rick's a good guy, go ahead, boom. You guys are way more qualified to decide whether I'm good at training than Mark is. Nothing against Mark. But to me, that's why it devalues this as opposed to those recommendations. So I encourage everybody to go get recommendations. The cynical side of me says this: when LinkedIn did this, traffic on the LinkedIn site went up by 60%. Ooh, money, 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 money. Okay, question.
Can you turn off the ability for people to do that?
You can. And you can turn off, and it's in the settings, you can also decide what skills are up there. Because I would get endorsed for things that I would be like, really? You think I'm good at that? Because it was something I didn't think I was good at. You can decide what skills go up there. If you didn't want any of those, you can do that too. If you don't want to allow people to endorse you, you can do that. And if you don't want that blue box to pop up, it gives you that option too. The blue box that says, hey, do you want to endorse Julia for all these things? And it only offers 5 at a time. And that's why I kind of wonder. I asked that question on LinkedIn one time, and they said it's driven by what people are saying. In other words, if people are endorsing me for resume writing, then that's what it's going to offer as an option. I personally don't believe that, because I've gotten things that have been off the charts, literally. Even skills that I didn't have as the 50 I have on my site. So, question, yes?
So does it have a negative effect if you can not have that whole section?
You can. And here's the thing. While I'm not a huge, as you can tell, I'm not a huge proponent of this endorsements and skills area, it does add those keywords to your profile. And the more people that do endorse you, at least LinkedIn is telling us that that helps to drive people to find you that way too. So make sure they're the skills you want there. And by the way, the only people who can endorse you, just as the only people who can write a recommendation for you, are first level connections. You cannot do it with a second or third level. They've got to be a first level connection first. Okay? So I do recommend that you get these, just because it helps to drive those searches. It helps you to come up in recruiters' searches. So even though I'm a little bit skeptical of the nature of why that beast is there, I encourage you to do it. Organizations, this can be really helpful, as can, and I frequently do this with students, volunteer experience and causes down below, even additional information. You'd be amazed at the searches people do on LinkedIn and the reasons and the similarities and connections we have. So I use as an example, when I was at USA Today, we were constantly trying to get in with Alaska Airlines. We wanted to put newspapers on their planes, and we'd had some bad experiences. One of my employees had board experience with somebody from Alaska Airlines, and we found that out through her LinkedIn profile. And that was a way to reach out. Hey, we've got this common area of concern. We both work for this charity. And that gave us an option to get in the door to talk to this person to help us to gain business. So those kinds of things can happen. And that's why I encourage even putting, you notice my high school is on my profile. Most people don't put their high school on their LinkedIn profile. But I do it for this reason. My high school is 3,000 miles away from here. But if somebody from my high school comes into Seattle and they do a LinkedIn search and they find me and they reach out and they say, Rick, I went to McQuaid, you went to McQuaid, can we at least get together and talk? I'm new in town, I don't know anything. Am I going to say no? No, I'm going to say yes, absolutely. We will all help people that went to the same school we did, for the most part, in my experience. Okay? So I encourage you to do that. And even, you'll see baseball and movies and reading and networking and cooking. Those kinds of things, again, you never know who's doing what kind of search. I may get somebody who's interested in career coaching, who is a baseball freak like I am. And they may reach out this way because they found me through my having baseball on my profile. And by the way, if you click on that, because you notice it's something in blue, if you click on that, it'll show all the people that have baseball in their profile. So you need to think of LinkedIn as being this 350 million person database too, that is so easy to search. Okay, so that's all that I really wanted. Hey Ross, all I really wanted to do on the profile, other than beef it up. It is your resume on steroids. Take advantage of that. Have somebody proofread it. I have a good friend who runs a media public relations company, and I found a typo on his page, and he was ecstatic when I found it. He was like, "Thank you, I missed that." If you see something pointed out, have somebody good read over your profile just as you would with a resume. And I will tell you too, to make sure you reach out and build those connections because you never know who's connected to who. Perfect example I use, and I will do this with the students, is there was a guy who lived across the hall from me when I was at Notre Dame. And he would be this guy right here. He was a year behind me at Notre Dame. And you can see he works for L'Oreal. He pays because he's got that blue funny thing. He doesn't know how to put a picture up there yet. But the reason I bring up Mike Massetti is because one of his first level connections is a guy by the name of Michael Dell, as in Dell Computer, Dell. So I am a second level connection to the founder and chairman of Dell Computers through a guy who lived across the hall from me when I was in college a million years ago, who is now a COO and VP. You never know what they're going to turn into or who they know. And I use my daughter as an example of who they know. My daughter is not yet 30. She's in her late 20s. She knows former Seahawk players. She knows a VP at Expedia. She knows a VP at BECU. You don't know who knows who. And in a town like this, you are so close to anybody. So here's what I like to do. Give me the name of somebody, preferably not at all associated with SPU. Any name of somebody you think is likely to have a LinkedIn profile and not affiliated at all with SPU. Go ahead, give me a name.
Steve Ballmer.
Steve Ballmer. I don't know if Steve's got a profile. B-A-L-M-E-R. Is that, yeah, I think that was him. Let's see what we get here. So you do a search, and that's where you do it, up in the search bar. And you'll see there are a lot of Steve Ballmers. So here's what I'm going to do, because we're going to try and find the Steve Ballmer. I'm going to first go down, and I'm going to let's put in a location. So I'll hit add, because Seattle is not one of my options, but I start typing in Seattle. It's going to say, oh, Greater Seattle area. Sioux Korean, that's interesting.
I think I might need another L, Rick.
I think you may be right, thank you. I like having editors in the crowd. There we go. Now, this is an interesting example. I don't know if that's probably not Orange Park, Florida. That's probably not him. Let's. Technology executive. It probably was the one actually unemployed currently. Let's try this one. Nope. That's not him either, is it? Anyway, here's a Steve Ballmer with one L. What was the third level connection? How about another name? Let's try somebody else that's maybe not so popular and hidden. Anybody? Parent? Neighbor?
Jason Reed
Jason Reed.
with 2 E's.
2 E's. You see him?
No.
No? Okay. 529 results. Is he here in the Seattle area?
No.
Where is he?
He's in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Charlotte area or Raleigh Durham or Greensboro?
Raleigh Durham.
Okay.
He's the 3rd one down.
Third one down. Notice, third level. Don't know him. Third level, third level, third level. So, here's the thing. With a third level connection, if I wanted to connect, and this is where LinkedIn has gotten nasty. You used to be able to connect directly with the third level. So if I hit connect, it's going to ask me the standard stuff. If I try to go through, because obviously we don't share those things, if I try to go through, it's going to say find references. You used to be able to go through a second level to get to a third level connection. And now they want you to pay to do that. Okay? So I would have to figure out what this means basically is that there are 2 people between me and him. And they've made it difficult to really find that. Here's what I always recommend, now, especially now that LinkedIn has made this more challenging. If you look over here on the right-hand side, there is a box that says people also viewed. And if you look down here, you will frequently find people that person works with, who you might even find somebody that you know or is a connection to you. But I often tell people, especially if they're, this is annoying to me too, if they are going to be interviewing or they want to get an informational interview at a company, is to look at the people over here because you may be able to find connections to somebody that way too. Okay? Obviously, the fact that I've got so many connections makes it easier for me, but that's more to the point of the more connections you have, the more likely you are to be able to reach somebody. Within the Seattle area, I'm relatively comfortable that you can give me just about anybody in the Seattle area and I'm going to be a second or third level connection frequently. Frequently. First time I ever did it was probably a year and a half ago in a classroom. Young lady sitting in the front row, she gives me the name. Turns out it was the name of her best friend's father from back in Montana. He ran a clown school. We were second level connections. I said, we haven't met before. No, we had not met. I had no idea who she was. I had no idea who he was. I didn't know I knew anybody who ran a clown school. Nonetheless, it is a great way of connecting. Now, a couple of the things I want to show you while we're doing that, while we're talking connections. Number one, if you click on connections, LinkedIn has long wanted to get into your email connections, and it wants to send out these emails using that standard boilerplate one line, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Don't fall into that trap. If you want to connect with somebody, and actually it's looking at my first level connections here, so they've changed this again too. If you want to connect with somebody, this is what'll pop up. Don't do it. It will send out emails to people who don't even have LinkedIn connections. It will take, what it'll do is it'll go into my email, and it'll suck out every one of my email connections, and it'll automatically send them that one line, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Don't do that. If you want to connect to somebody on LinkedIn, go to their profile and do it the normal way. Okay? Now, here's a little tip that I think is very valuable, and I know we have somebody in the room from Alumni. Something that LinkedIn has come out with in the last year and change, there are a couple of things, but number one, over under interests. First off, you can follow companies, you can join groups, which we'll talk about in a minute. Underneath there, Pulse, by the way, is where all the movers and shakers are. This is where you see Richard Branson and the president, Lou Adler. You can see people I'm following, but also there's another tab there, and that is top posts. Let's do that. They keep changing all these around. You can see what's going viral, what's big. You can follow these people as simple as if I click on Cachette Prescott, I can just hit that yellow follow in the corner, and it will feed into my news feed on that main page. it will automatically feed anything she posts out there. I am, in essence, following her. That is a fairly new development with LinkedIn as well. That's Pulse. I encourage you to go out and play around with that one. Here's the big one, education. Okay, so I hit education. This is what pops up. See your school. It's going to look at my boring schools. You guys don't want to look at my boring schools. Let's go look at Seattle Pacific. So I click on Seattle Pacific University. It takes me to the university page. And because I am a manager here, that's why it says edit this page. It's not going to say that for you. But what I want to go down to is here you can see there's some information. Explore careers of the 15,174 plus alumni. That's a little misleading, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I'm going to click on that, and it takes me to the university page. This is the alumni page. Okay? The reason I say that, you notice it's changed already. It's now 15,172. It's a little misleading because they identify it as alumni and students. I am neither, but I am in there because I work here and because it's on my profile. So if you go looking for a school, it's going to show you anybody who's got that school in their profile. Likewise, if I am a graduate, an alumnus of Seattle Pacific, and I don't have it on my profile, I am not going to show up here. But I can tell you this is enormously valuable. Over in the Center for Career and Calling, I would frequently go in here anytime I wanted somebody from a particular organization, whether I wanted them to come to an event or I wanted them to participate in something on campus. So you'll notice underneath there, it's populating it with those people that I know that are first level connections and so forth. But what's more important to me are these nice little graphs out here. So you'll notice that of the 15,000, roughly 14,672 of them live in the United States. Let's say I'm only interested in the ones that live in the Portland, Oregon area. There are 735 of them. Watch what happens to where they work and what they do when I click on Portland, Oregon. It changes. Now all of a sudden, we don't have Boeing up at the top. We've got Nike and Intel and the Oregon Health and Science University, OSU. So I can narrow this down further. Let's say I'm looking at, and by the way, you'll notice there's an arrow over here to the right. If I click on that arrow, you can see what they studied according to their profile, what they say they're skilled at, right in the middle, and how we're connected, which to me is the least important part of that whole scenario. But let's say I'm looking at people in Portland, Oregon, who are in the communication and journalism area. So I'm going to click that one. There are several communications ones. It's going to get temperamental on me here. Looks like it is. So let's try this again. We're going to do communication media studies. And LinkedIn is getting really temperamental. But down below you can already see it's getting populated with people who have those things in their profile. For some reason it is not cooperating with what I really want it to do here.
So we're all on the page with you clicking around probably.
That could be. But the important thing is, I mean, literally, if I wanted to go into, okay, event management, and they've got communication and journalism, literally, here they are. I think there were 9 of them, and there they are. I can see some great things here. I can see how I'm connected to them. I can see, in many of their cases, when they graduated. And I can say, oh, I want to, I don't know John Fortmeyer at all, but let's look at him. If I want to connect with him, let's take a look at his profile first. You can see I'm a 3rd level connection. Portland, Oregon area newspapers, I can look at his profile and learn a lot about him. I can see he was here back in the 70s, so my gosh, he's even older than I am. Is that possible? I can learn things about him. I can look at what other people have said about him in terms of those recommendations. They're on his public profile. I can see what groups he belongs to. I can see what he's following, which is not a lot, but I can also see that he is following Seattle Pacific. So what I would do when I'm over in the Center for Career and Calling, when I'm looking to bring somebody onto campus, I'll immediately go and do a search where I'm looking for alumni of SPU. I might be looking for a particular company, and I can narrow that search down that way using LinkedIn as a tool. It is always easiest to go after alumni because they're all going to say yes, right? Most of the time. But it is a great way, and I tell students this frequently, it is a great way to make those connections in terms of doing an informational interview. Okay? Questions about that? Very valuable piece of real estate. I'll let you do the pulse on your own. Groups is huge. Now I want to touch base on groups. So I'm clicking on groups. It's going to look at my groups. And you get to be a member of 50 groups, although for some unknown reason, I'm a member of 53. So let's say we're going to go look for groups. I'm going to do a search. I'm going to click the advanced button up here on the upper right. And I want to not do a people search. I want to do a group search. So you notice I clicked that little arrow next to advanced up there in the upper left-hand corner, and it dropped down these options. I'm going to go look for groups. You can see there are 2,013,000 groups on LinkedIn. It is so easy to make a group on LinkedIn. In a matter of less than 5 minutes, I could turn all of us into a group on LinkedIn. What's particularly nice about groups is you can see how they're limiting how you can reach out to people. You used to be able to reach out to third-level connections. Now you can't. Anybody you share a group with, you can reach out to directly. You don't even have to go through a second-level connection. If for some reason Steve Ballmer and I shared a group, it would show that on our profiles, and I literally could send him through LinkedIn an email saying, I'd like to talk to you about what you plan to do with that basketball team.
How does that show up on the profiles? The shared group?
You remember where I go to connect with somebody and it asks me how I know them?
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be one of the options that'll say groups, because that means we share a group. If I don't share a group, it's not going to show up as an option.
On this drop down.
Yeah. Okay? But great question. So if I look at these groups and I can narrow these down, I can put in, let's say I'm interested again in communication. If I can spell. Okay. So I'm interested in communications groups. And there are only 9,698 of those that showed up. A couple things I want to show you here. First off, this top group, which if I wanted to join, I could hit join, although, again, I'm maxed out with 53 groups, so that would create a problem. But a couple of things. You'll see there's a little lock over here on the left-hand side. That lock means it's a closed group. That means you can only join it if they let you in. So for example, Seattle Pacific University, if you're an alumnus, we should have a closed alumni group, which we have an alumni group. I'm not sure it's closed. Is it closed at the moment? We're not sure. But ideally, you want only SPU alumni in that group. So you would make it a closed group, which means that a manager or owner of that group has to approve you coming in. So you hit join, and you don't join automatically. It sends off an email message basically to the owner or manager, and they get to say yay or nay on whether or not to have you there. So down below, and you also see there too the number in my network and the number of members. And this is a particularly big group. There's 181,000 members. It says it's very active. There are 280 discussions just this month. That's what you should look for, active groups. And if you join groups, and as I mentioned, you can join up to 50 of them, get in there and get involved. It's okay to just watch initially what's going on. What are the discussions about? Who are the players? Where are they? What are their positions? What do they do? That's great to observe for a while, but then I encourage you, jump in. Pipe in when you have a comment or an opinion about something. So I can do that with an active group, but you'll notice also here's United Communications. This is obviously an open group. There's no lock on it. There are 990 people in my network, 39,000 people. There are some enormous groups. If I go back to my groups and click on groups, it'll populate it with my groups. So here's the business school, perfect example. It's a closed group, as you can see. If I click on it, there's something up at the top from the dean. Underneath, you're going to see this crazy guy keeps posting, and there's Daniel Halleck, the other crazy guy who posts a lot of things. But you can see, for example, when I had the career fair going on, when I had LinkedIn workshop, there it is. And you'll see that people can go in, just like on Facebook, you can go in and like things, you can put a comment in, you can unfollow. I don't know why you would do that, I'm a nice guy. But all kinds of information can be shared. And it's also great to have conversations. So here's Daniel putting something up about a role at a particular job that was available. And he had some likes, and somebody said, oh, how do I reach out? Oh, here's Todd Orwig, that's who you need to talk with. Oh, this is great. What is it, Todd's position? What's his, that's not the greatest question because you could just go look at Todd's profile, but that's okay. But Daniel then answered. He's the director of operations. So you can have conversations. Some of these groups will get into, nuts and bolts things about particular industries or philosophical conversations or ethical questions. And it's great to pipe up and put down an opinion. For one thing, if you do that fairly regularly, like Daniel and I do here in this group, people know, hey, Daniel and Rick are the guys that say things on this group. But here, the dean, and there's Anthony Rainey, who I don't know. But I would be willing to bet I'm at least a second level connection of. So you can see it's an opportunity to have conversations, to create dialogue, and to be able to put information out there that can help people out. What that can really do is help to create an image of who you are and what you represent, and that you might be a subject matter expert in an area, or that you have some distinct knowledge that can be a benefit to other people. That becomes extremely valuable, and that's why I tell people when you join groups, that's great, but become active in that group. Let people know who you are out there. And I know most people don't do that, so again, I encourage you to join groups that you're going to be involved in and groups that are active and have active conversations and discussions. This also helps you to be found and to find people out there on LinkedIn as well. Okay? Questions? How are we doing? We got about 15 minutes on time. So when you go to add connections, as I say, go and look at somebody's profile first before you decide you're going to connect with them. What I frequently tell people, and I think I mentioned this early on, is make sure that when you connect with somebody, you go out and look at their profile. So for example, I'm not connected with the dean, I don't think. Let's take a look. Nope, we're second level connections. But here I see some people I am connected with, so let's say Denise. I pull up Denise's profile and I can look at Denise's connections by going down to the bottom. And you'll notice here it says all 500 plus the 28 that we share. If I click on that, you can see who those 28 are. I can look at the new person she's just added, Emily, who is a recent graduate. I know she just graduated in 2014. What I encourage you to do, so let's say I just connected with Denise, because she has her settings set up that I can look at all of her connections, I might just go through there and say, oh, Jeff Rogers, I know Jeff Rogers. Well, I actually do know Jeff Rogers. So I could literally pop Jeff Rogers up and I could say, oh, I want to connect. And I could go through the standard approach of connecting with Jeff Rogers. I encourage you to do that because I refer to that as kind of the low-hanging fruit. The more of those connections, and then every time you add somebody, you go and see who is that person connected to, because the more connections, the more ability you have to reach out to more people. And that's what this platform is all about. Okay? The most important things about LinkedIn, getting that profile so that you're going to be found through the words you have in that profile, and then connecting with other people. But there are many, many things you can do with LinkedIn in terms of searches. Let me show you just another area that you can use. So if I go back, let me do an advanced search. Up here at the top, I'm going to click on advanced. Okay? And I'm going to do an advanced people search this time. Okay? So let's say I want to find somebody affiliated with Seattle Pacific. I'm going to put Seattle Pacific in quotation marks. The reason I do that is because I don't want Seattle University and I don't want PLU. I want those two words together, so I put them in quotation marks. And I want somebody who is involved in marketing or sales. And I want them to be in the Seattle area. And here's where those postal codes come up. I'm just going to put down the university zip code, 98119. And you'll notice underneath I have options. I can do a 50-mile radius. If it would let me do my options, you would see it would do a 35-mile radius, a 100-mile radius, a 10-mile radius. And I pop it up, and this is kind of too broad a search. I got 1,940 results there. Okay. What I might want to do is I might want to specifically decide that I'm going to exclude second level connections. And if I do that, that number is going to drop down considerably. Although it still is showing me, for some reason it did group. I don't want to do group, I want to do, let's do this, okay. And do a search. Yes, they want me to upgrade. They always want you to upgrade. No reason to do that. So I'm down to 33 results. And it's going to put them in basic order of, you can see most of these people are first level connections to me. And they have either marketing or sales and an SPU connection. And I could reach out to them that way. Okay? I suspect some of you are connected to some of these people. Okay? But this is just an easy way to find people and to utilize that. So here's a perfect example. Sean Davis, who's at Microsoft. I don't know Sean well, but he and I are first level connections. He came and did an event for me. Basically reached out to him through LinkedIn because I was looking for people to do an employer panel here, and I needed somebody from Microsoft. And he showed up. And now here we are, first level connections. Good guy. Anyway. It is a great device to use for finding people. You can find people in companies the same way as what I just did. I used Seattle Pacific as a way of finding somebody. If you wanted to find somebody, we can probably find Sean Davis by adding, if I just put in Microsoft, or you could do it by title. I want people that are just a vice president. But if I put in Microsoft, it's going to further narrow the search. And I suspect Carol's going to be there, and Candace is going to be there. Alan Klein is going to be there. There's Carol and Candace. So these people all have to have Seattle Pacific in their profile, along with Microsoft and marketing or sales. So you can see the more I drill down, the more I get narrower and narrower in that search, and I can find people that can help me out. In this case, I think all of these people are actually first level connections. If they were not, it would give me an avenue to reach out. Okay? Questions? We got about 10 minutes left. Yeah?
So the best way to connect, if you just search someone and you see that they're a second or third level connection, if they're second, the best way to get connected with them is then
If you see that they're a
if you
second.
just search them and you find that you're a second level connection, then the most efficient way is to
reach out through the first level connection
Okay.
you've got,
Okay.
and just what we did earlier.
Okay.
That's the best, most effective way of doing it. Unless you can get that person to just introduce you
Yeah.
outside of LinkedIn. By the way, if you do go that route and the person agrees, that doesn't mean you're going to be connected necessarily unless they hit accept on connect. What it means is you basically have opened an email stream. So going through Nikki to get to Julia, I send something to Nikki and she passes on to Julia and Julia says yes, and it's basically an email stream.
Okay.
Doesn't mean we're necessarily connected yet.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's where sometimes just doing emails.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There are some circumstances where if you don't know somebody directly on LinkedIn, it may ask you. You're not a first or second level connection. It might ask you what their email address is, and that's a setting. Okay. Speaking of settings, because we've got about 10 minutes left, I want to shoot over here very quickly to the account settings area just to show you a few more things over here. So I'm going to go back into the privacy and settings, which I mentioned before and we briefly touched on. Again, it's going to ask me for my password, which is good. And so very quickly, we went through the turn on and off your broadcast. Select who can see your activity feed. This is an important one. If you think of that main landing page, you have a couple of options here, but who you want to see the information that you share out there is up to you. And you have some options. You can put everyone. I don't know exactly how that works. You can say your connections, your network, or only you. Now remember, connections are first level only. Network is going to go out second and third level. I don't know why anybody would put only you, but hey, whatever. It's an option. Okay, my recommendation of what I do is network. That's me. Select what others see when you viewed their profile. This is an interesting one. So you notice mine says basically the headline and the location of where I am on my profile. And that's the way I have it, selected on my profile. You can see that's recommended. You can be anonymous to the point of, and it says volunteer at Seattle University. I'm a mentor in the Seattle U Business School, so it shows that ahead of my SPU because Seattle U comes ahead of Seattle Pacific. So whatever. Or you can be totally anonymous. When I worked at Lee Hecht Harrison, I was working for a company that basically frequently was going into companies that were about to lay people off. So if people saw that I had visited their profile, they might suddenly say, uh-oh, I'm about to lose my job. So I put it totally anonymous. If you do that, it also means you can't see who has looked at your profile. Mind you, I think that the who looked at your profile, I think that's about the most worthless thing on LinkedIn. Because, I mean, what are you going to do with that? Oh, I want to go to Amazon. Somebody from Amazon looked at my profile. You're going to call them up and say, hey, you looked at my profile. What are we going to do here? No, you're not going to do that. You're just going to say, oh, they looked at my profile. And then if they don't reach out to you, you're going to be disappointed. So to me, that's kind of worthless. But if you do go the route of totally anonymous, it also means you can't see who has looked at your profile either. Some people like me, that's not important. Others want to see who's looking at my profile. Okay, whatever. Again, the default setting is for showing basically all your information. So, and I'm going to skip over the how you rank. That's another one that I'm not wild about. Who can see your connections? You'll notice mine says only you. The default setting is your connections. So you remember when I looked at Denise Daniels' profile, and I could see all 500 plus of her connections. If you were to go and look at let's go look at Matt Youngquist, the perfect example. Matt has his own business, and even though Matt and I share a lot of connections together, you'll notice that all we can see are those shared connections. I can't see all of his connections, and I know he's got several thousand. He does that because he puts his clients on, he connects with them on LinkedIn, and he doesn't want to have people poaching clients by looking at his LinkedIn. So that's, again, one of those settings that I'm on here in account settings. If I set it for only you, and that's the way I have mine set up, that does not mean that if Julie is a second level connection, you're not going to see that and realize you can connect to her through Nikki or through me or whoever. It just means you're not going to see the whole population of everybody I'm connected to. So that's why I recommend that setting. Make people work to get to who you know. Okay. Change your profile photo visibility. Again, some people don't want people looking at their profile picture. This is how you can also crop your picture, add a new picture in there. All those things can be done. LinkedIn is constantly upgrading this stuff and making it better and nicer, and I really do like that they do that. Let's go back. I don't want to be on linked. Let's go back to my settings again. It's going to... Couple more things I want to show you there. For one thing, when you join groups, so I click on the group one and you'll notice the selections down below changed. You can select the order that your groups show up, and I do that. So I click on that and you can see I've got SPU, a number of different SPU ones are up towards the top, and I have my Notre Dame and University of Kansas stuff up there. You can rank order them however you want, and that's how they're going to show up, because people are more likely to see certain groups you're in and not others. Okay. The viewers, remember there was that box on the right-hand side, viewers of this profile also looked at. You actually have the option of displaying that or not. If for some reason you don't want people seeing your colleagues and people you're connected to necessarily, you can turn that off. What I do want to show you though is, let's go back to the groups and companies. Select the frequency of group digest emails. This is a huge one. When you join groups, basically you're going to start getting emails. If you don't want to get overrun with emails from LinkedIn, you need to go in here, and for every group you belong to, you get to select, do I want to have a daily digest email, a weekly digest email, or no email? And trust me, as you can see, there are some you want to get no email from. And there are some that you want to get just weekly, because otherwise, the more groups you join, you're going to get all kinds of email. Hey, this person just posted this. Hey, this, ooh, leave me alone, okay? So that's an important one for you to get in there. And again, I encourage you to go and play around with these. View companies you're following. One of them that I want to really, oh, by the way, going back to that, turn on and off group invitations. That's a fairly recent change too. If you do not want to be able to be approached through group connection, you can do that now. I think they probably had too many people saying, I don't want people reaching out directly to me through groups, because that's been advertised as here's a way you can get through to a lot of C-level executives, because they tend to be very active in groups on LinkedIn. But over on the account settings, you need to go through, especially the top one, which is the managing advertising. The default is they have these things checked. LinkedIn may show me ads on third-party websites. LinkedIn may show me ads based on third-party. No. Sorry, I get enough of that stuff. I don't need more. So I encourage you to turn those off. But go through all of the settings individually and just play around with them. Okay, because there are lots of things that you can do there. As you can see, you can decide who gets to see your photo and who doesn't. You can decide who you accept connection requests from and who not. I did want to point out to you too, over on when you're in edit mode as I am, you can see other areas that I don't have on my profile right now. Projects, publications, honors and awards. I guarantee you if I have anything published, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to get a publication thing out there, and it's literally as easy as just hitting that plus. Some students, if you got really high scores on the MCATs or the LSATs and you want to let the world know that, go ahead and put test scores down there. You can add courses, again, something I encourage students to do. Again, patent, you better believe if I had a patent, it would be on my profile. Same with certifications, you can put certifications out there. So this it's huge. You can put so much information out there, which then, remember, can be used to help find you, and you can use to help find others who have those same things on their profile. Okay? Questions before we wrap up? We are right at 12:30. I put everybody to sleep, or you're all good. Yeah.
I missed the very beginning when you were talking about the URL.
Yes.
Would you mind going through that again?
I'd be happy to. So right up here, directly under my picture, is your public URL. There, if you're in edit mode, it should say edit right next to it. You click on that, and for those of you who maybe didn't get a chance to do it earlier, this box, and it's not going to necessarily be in the same spot on your page, but look for the one that says your public profile URL, and it'll show you the current one, and underneath it says customize your public URL. Put your name in there, first name, last name, first name, no spaces. If you have to, because you have a common name, you might put in a middle name or a middle initial. And then I encourage you to put that right on your resume. We good?
And then go to your current URL.
Your current URL. Click on that. Customize your public profile URL. Any other questions? Yes.
I continually get inundated with pulse emails from LinkedIn, like the updated news, and it just drives me crazy.
You can regulate how frequently you get those too, just as you do with the groups. Yeah. I encourage you. You don't want to go that route. I am following, and you can follow companies. I didn't really touch on the companies, but you can do searches of companies, and you can see there's again millions of companies literally on LinkedIn, but you can follow companies just as simple as hitting that yellow follow button. But if you don't want to be overwhelmed with stuff, you need to regulate how frequently you're getting emails. So I encourage you to do that, and it's right out there in the settings. Yeah. Okay. Other questions? If not, you guys have been great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your input, and go enjoy the rest of this lovely day. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. If you didn't get a chance to sign in, please sign in.